Hello, everybody. It's Megan, and we are here for week 11 of xAPI Cohort. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And let's get started. This is session number 11, 11 out of 12. So as you know, our session here is winding down, and this is where some of the things get interesting. This session is being recorded today and will be available within mere moments after our session, both in the xAPI Cohort Slack and out in email to anybody who's registered, as well as out on the interwebs for anybody who'd like to take a look at it. If you are on social media yourself, you can follow us at hashtag xAPI Cohort, or if you post something about Cohort, we ask that you use that. Tag us, the xAPI Gnome. And today's speaker is Duncan Welder, so Duncan W-I-V on Twitter. So you can scoop up all of our socials and invite more people to this little, I was going to say party, but party something different. We're going to talk about party in just a moment. So we are all here. And when I say all here, I mean, there are 607 people already signed up or currently signed up for the fall xAPI cohort. That is right on par with where we have been trending the last few sessions. And when you think about the fact that we ask people to sign up for each spring and fall semester independently, that's 600 new independent sign-ups. So a lot of times I get asked, is xAPI ready? Is it just a trend? Who's adopting it? And I like to be able to say there are 600 people signed up to learn about it. As you know, once you get in here, you'll find that most of those 600 people are not active on a regular basis. We probably have close to 100 people who are actively engaging in various ways on the Slack community. All time in Slack, we over since 2015, since we've been running xAPI Cohort, there's over 4,000 people. Jamie told me there's 410 as of today. We are already accepting signups for the spring cohort. And if you have not done that yet, I recommend that you please do so. It puts you on the list to get notifications, session recordings, session PDFs for the PowerPoint presentation, the whole nine, right? So that is absolutely a great way to keep yourself in the loop, as well as start bringing your team along, start bringing your boss along, start talking to people about Cohort. If somebody wants to know what's going on with Cohort, this is a great, or the xAPI in general, this is a great thing you can send their way and recommend to them, build your network a little bit. The nice thing is that, of course, xAPI Cohort is free. Today, we're going to be talking about xAPI in the wild, kind of a safari of sorts, with our friend Duncan Welder, who has been a longtime friend of the cohort, as well as xAPI Party and xAPI itself. This is how I met Duncan. Duncan and his work partner, Art Working Team, are also going to be speaking at the xAPI party. And it's entirely possible that if you're listening to this recording, you are also going to be joining us for xAPI party. There are over 144 people already signed up for xAPI party. That will be December 10th. We'll have details a little bit more on that at the end of today. But that looks like we are going to have a 2-track event. We'll have 1 track for novices and newcomers to xAPI, and 1 track that's deep in the weeds, profile building and the state of the specification and like some real deep, hairy details. So I'm really excited that we're able to bring those 2 together into a still free day of learning about xAPI, and that will be on December 10th. You can sign up for party in the same place that you sign up for cohort. So xapicohort.com. Today, I am Megan and I'm hosting, and I want to send out a huge thanks to Jamie Washington for being our producer today, as well as managing all the communications in between things. Jamie is really the glue and the engine that makes Cohort work week to week. And so by all means, show some love and appreciation to Jamie, because she's what keeps this moving like a well-oiled machine. One of the things we love to say is that you are not too late to cohort. There are people who've signed up just in the last week, and that is an A-OK thing. We love, right, people, whenever it is that you are ready to join our community, we love to welcome you in. And so if you're here for the first time, you are not too late. Welcome. I also recommend, if you're here for the first time, sign up for spring, and then you can get the whole experience too. But because Cohort is a welcoming and accessible learning space, what we need to do is make sure that there are as few barriers to getting started as possible. And I'll go a little bit meta on you. That's exactly what Cohort is about. Our Cohort is about reducing the barriers to xAPI adoption. That's why we're here, right? And so in order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a little bit of what is the xAPI cohort, which is a repeat for all the people who've been here, but new information in a way that we welcome our newcomers. The xAPI cohort, it's free, it's virtual, it is vendor neutral, but vendor supported, because we couldn't do this without some of the extended free trials and extra help that we get from the various vendors in the cohort Slack. What it means is that you won't be hit up for sales by any of them. It's a 12-week learning by doing, project-based if you want to. And today we'll share out status updates from projects. So project teams, if you are sharing out your status update, by all means, be prepared to let Jamie know to bring you off of mute at the end to share your update. And it's a team learning experience and community. And this is really becoming a pretty powerful community where we have people connecting up and getting help, getting product recommendations, getting resources, getting jobs, getting new team members as they're hiring. There's lots and getting lots of specials and good deals on products. So this is a pretty amazing community. And if you find me out at any conferences, hit me up for an xAPI cohort sticker and wear it on your laptop proudly, or wherever it is you happen to wear your stickers. And my next conference that I'll be physically out at is the Training Magazine Conference in February in Orlando. We have two ways to engage with Cohort. One is the weekly web sessions, either live here like we are today, or on the recording that will be sent out after today. We meet on this platform. It's called AirMeet. It's kind of a cool little platform, and meet every week 2 to 3 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, which is available to many, but we realize not all of our cohort participants around the world. That shout out is to you, Australia. We also have project teams. So if you would like to get involved in creating a project collaboratively with a volunteer group of people, or joining a project that's already underway, you can absolutely do that. And in order to support and facilitate that, we have a Slack community as well as a GitHub repository, so that teams can save their files, they can save their updates, and that can be available for the xAPI adoption community even beyond your participation in Cohort. And that's been a really, really positive source and powerful source for how did they do that? It's out there. We also then have that weekly email with the updates, the web session recordings, and other interesting information from around the xAPI community. Each of our 12-week sessions, we have a curriculum arc where we start with, what's xAPI? How do I send data? We then talk about, how do I receive data, and how does that fit into the rest of my learning data framework? And then we spend some time on some of the issues around having data and xAPI and a learning ecosystem and framework, right? And connecting with SCORM and xAPI and CMI5 and ethics and artificial intelligence and the larger learning ecosystem, of which xAPI is really a transport mechanism, right, for your data. Last week, we had Izzy Lara talk about xAPI and your data governance. And today, Art Workentine, not Art, Art's blowing us off today. Just kidding. Art wasn't able to make it today, but Duncan Welder will be sharing us some of these case studies of actually fully formed projects out, released in the world. The cool thing about xAPI Cohort is we get to see what can be made with a bunch of volunteers working off hours from scratch to come together and pull something together. But these are often rough prototypes because, well, we're only giving you 12 weeks, right? And what I love about having fully formed case studies is having these experiences of full-on production projects that we can share. Next week, we will spend the entire time featuring cohort project teams and the demos from the work that they've done this semester. So I'm pretty stoked for that. So I am going to introduce Duncan Welder of RISC, which is based in Houston. And Duncan and the team at RISC have been longtime implementers, experimenters, supporters, and leaders in the xAPI space. And it's a real pleasure and a real treat to welcome Duncan back here to xAPI Cohort. And I'm just going to stop talking, and because really people are here to listen to you, Duncan.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity, and good morning, afternoon, or night, depending on how you're listening to this and where. So always love to get to share with the group. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and share the screen here. And what we'll do for the next, let's see. So I'll have to keep a time check since we have the team check-ins later. But what we'll do is blast through some case studies, and we'll try to keep things at a very high level. But I put links with each of the examples that will take you back to more depth information, wherever that comes from. So, not trying to neglect anything, but we're not going to get down into the technical weeds too deeply here. Really, the purpose of coming in and sharing today is when you look at the last couple years, we've had a huge number of clearly changes in the workforce to begin with, and then more specifically, uh, a lot of new and interesting xAPI development. One of the things that we've been recently involved with, and I did not include an example here, but I can certainly pull that in, or direct you to the resources. Are things like helping companies that are moving to more AR and VR for training in a remote environment. So working with a lot of Unity developers, which is outside of our normal area in the world. But when times change, this is what we adapt to. So all right, these are all set up, these little case studies, as challenges and then solutions. So the first one, I really came in kind of later than we should have on this project, but we made it work. We had a company that was doing leadership development training, very mobile workforce. So they are first level supervisors working as project folks out in the field, and overseeing crews there. They have a lot of turnover. So what they decided to do was to have a mobile first solution. And said people hated their LMS and they weren't going to log in. And they contracted with a group to develop a series of 16 training modules that needed to be delivered out, spaced over time. So they're all building on one another. And it's a population of about 6,000 people. And they needed to get the results back into this LMS that everybody hates. So what they did is came to us and said, all right, how do we track this? How do we get this out to people? And they were working in SCORM and developing in RISE, from a mobile standpoint. And we came back and said, gosh, can you change the output from score them to xAPI. And I said, sure, so let's get a sample module there. And what was created is a little space learning application that takes the content when it figures out, calculates the day that I need to receive my next piece of content because they're all timed. And it will create a text message that has an embedded token. So it's passing my actor information using that embedded token, and the content just writes directly back to the learning record store. And then we have the learning management system watching and can move those records in if they need to there. So really just going through and they're handling an import on their side to get that information in. But the whole thing is set up with reminders and different message controls. So if different areas have a different days of the week that they are off, then you could go through and manage those as well. So what this guy looks like, if I can grab my other link there. All right. I'm going to slide a browser window over the top here. So this is a list of courses. There's a little students tab too, where we can collect information, let students self-register those things. When a course gets set up, like I'll open up this space learning course. It says, we have an intro module that's just an xAPI package. We've got another module. There are some controls over how many days between each of those elements come out. Now my certificate comes out immediately because I don't need to have a delay there. If I wanted to add another lesson, I get the choice of what type is it. Those are a bit hard to read with this pale background, but that's CMI5 AU, an xAPI package, SCORM, uh, a test or an evaluation, test evaluation or certificate. Those are all kind of separate items there. And then once I make an assignment, I can track the activity. So how many text messages are sent. If someone doesn't have um, a smartphone or does not have the or has opted out of receiving text messages, we can also send email. And then we can see the completion graph by text, and right at the bottom there's completion uh, by email as well. We were interested in trying to see how many people were, what the delta was between people that are completing that training when they get a text message versus getting an email. Just from a very casual observation standpoint, it seems like it is about 2 to 1 that I'm seeing folks come in and knocking out assignments without having to get reminders, uh, through their notices as well if they get that content by text. So I'm not trying to make any assessment of how that or the reasons for why that is, and maybe novelty or maybe just easier to work with. But we saw good success with that, and it was one of those things that they came with a problem and said, "How do we fix this?" And so xAPI is our way to go. The next thing, as far as a challenge, was looking at instructor graded lessons, and I know that Judy is in the chat. Judy was showing me Pebble, which is their authoring tool, her authoring tool, and it has some what I consider very unique features for complex skills development. The ability to share answers between students, or to have privately answered questions and more kind of guided evaluation through things like being able to upload photographs if I've completed a project or upload a video. So as soon as I saw this, I was like, oh gosh, this is what I need for instructor graded lessons. So what we did is first just integrated the two systems. All we did was pointed Pebble at RLRS. There are literally three fields in the configuration: what's your endpoint, what's your ID, and what's your password. So once we did that, we started getting xAPI statements written as someone goes through one of these Pebble experiences. And then we added to the LMS an instructor graded lesson page. So when Pebble writes to the LRS, we query the LRS display the answers. The instructor can then go in and mark answers correct or incorrect. And the next step there was to provide feedback, and then the completions get updated in the learning management system. So again, it's kind of sniffing the learning record store all the time. And here's just a quick example. If I take a look at um, one of these Pebbles, this one's on artificial intelligence, and it has uh, some free-form questions that people can answer and go back through. So, in your words, how would you describe artificial intelligence? I'm already in progress here, so have moved on through it, and just jump me straight into the content there. But again, things I can share. Let's say it's um, all right. So I'll submit that, and then um, oh, if I go back to my question there, I can look at those responses, and I've got a couple of them in there. The other example that I wanted to show is, again, this is an in progress module, but it has a question type there that says upload a screenshot of some LRS data that you've generated. And you can either browse or drag and drop. And then if I want to take a look at those responses, now I actually put pictures of my dogs in because I prefer that to the LRS statements. But again, everything is being written over again to um, the actual learning record store. So if I refresh that guy, I'll see some different activity there. So, somebody launched or ran that Foundations of AI course. And then if I want to take a look at the actual instructor graded lessons page from the LMS, you can say, let me back up to my question list here. Um, and I'll say, write your own xAPI statement in subject verb object form. See, I've got 28 responses, my object ID. Now I can come through, view those guys, and see that clearly I use Brittany Amos and Richard Arno for a lot of testing. And here I've got their assorted answers to those questions written back over time there. And I've got some of these marked correct or incorrect. So if I just want to make an edit on one, I can do that and save again that data over to the learning records store. All right. Any thoughts or questions there? I didn't want to jam through those too fast, but I'm also not seeing the chat. So if there is anything, you guys holler at me that I need to respond to.
Yep. So you know what, Duncan, we are there's some general appreciation expressed for the interplay between the LMS, the LRS, and the activity provider, right? And this latter case, the Pebble book, but no specific questions yet. Do you have other case studies you're sharing?
I do. Oh yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, I just wanted to check in there because I
Yep.
realized it was only me hearing myself for a bit.
Only you. Well, I
So
do have a question. So, and
okay.
folks, while Duncan answers this one, go ahead and send in new questions. So, on this second example, Brian Duck has a question about just how it's all working. The instructor enters the grades, and is that done directly in the LRS, or where do they put the grades into in this situation?
Yeah. So here they're just putting they're marking each question right or wrong, and that's going in um, as a response into the LRS, and then it's the LMS that will ultimately calculate the grade. So, right, so there's some existing kind of LMS functionality that we're tapping into there, the ability to have you know a randomized test go through and process the grade and calculate that out based on the number of questions. So that's kind of it's kind of standard stuff. So that's I neglected there. Um, but yeah, all they're doing is, all realistically, we did was add that page so that the instructor can go through and see the different people's responses. Yeah, and that's just a direct read out of the LRS.
Okay, coolness. Well, so there's a follow-up question from Martin on this one,
Okay.
just to make sure we're getting it all straight here. So when the teacher marks the answers, then is something sent to the LRS?
It
Who
is.
is the author of that statement then, and how's that connected to the student's ID? Like, who's the actor on that?
Okay, so it is um, the actor would be the instructor there, and it's referencing the statement that is attributed to the student, right? So the student is the actor on the statement or on the response, and then it's really just a reference from that statement to the with the results by the instructor. That authentication for the instructor is happening um, through the LMS, where authentication into the content is being handled by Pebble in this case.
Okay, so walk me through on the grading statement. What is the actor, the object, and the actor, the verb, the object, and then any context? Just so we're like, because we have groups who are working on profiles and really
Oh
getting
yeah,
into
for
the
sure.
weeds. Yeah.
No, I'll have to get you an example,
Okay.
but as far as my uh, the actual statement going into the LRS with the response, right? The student is the actor, the person that's giving that response. It gets written in, but it's not graded. There's no result property there. So when the uh, instructor comes in, they're logging into the LMS. When they mark a grade as or mark a question as correct or incorrect, they're the actor, the one that's actually doing the grading. It's then the we reference the statement with the uh, actual question, the actual response in it, in that chain. So you can step up to those, or you can query across all the questions that a single student put in, versus all the responses for a single question by any student, right? So different ways
Okay.
of slicing those.
Got it. So the instructor is the actor on their grade, and then it references the original post as is that the activity?
Yeah.
Or
Oh,
is, so as I'm referencing the original response, and you can always, if I'm digging too hard, you can always get back to me. Just really curious. And
yeah.
so
The
Peter,
response is the activity. Should be the activity. Because the question is the object. Right.
So Peter Gunther is proposing an approach to doing this. It's not necessarily your approach, but where statement one, right, the student answered the question.
Okay.
And then statement two is the teacher graded statement one, and that context result then includes the score.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And you said there was a third statement?
nope.
Nope, just the two. Yeah. No, I think that's. I believe that sounds like the same route to me.
Yeah.
Just worded more eloquently.
So, and Judy's backing you up on this.
Okay. Excellent.
All right.
The support. All right. What's my time there?
You've got about 10 minutes left.
You got it. All right.
All right.
Not a problem.
Getting our way.
Yeah, we'll keep jamming through the next one again. This is a technical group, petrochemical company doing a lot of safety training, and all SCORM, 70% to pass. They start looking at incidents, and of course, any incident investigation is going to come back to a lack of training, and they kept trying to figure out where the breakdown was. So, what they wanted to do was go all the way back to the objective level, right? So I want to see how people are answering or mastering specific objectives, not just this is the bloodborne pathogens test or this is the fire extinguisher test. So what they did is pulled their questions out of the SCORM content and they put them into a testing engine that was already in the LMS and is writing the records back as xAPI. And in that system, the questions are organized by objectives. So they had a lot of work to do to go back first and identify identify their objectives, but associate each of their assessments with a particular objective and make sure it was some kind of valid, valid measure, which was problematic for them to begin with. So they ended up doing a lot of content work in addition to the taking the xAPI piece out. But what we did, they were already a Power BI shop, so they had internal folks that already worked with Power BI, and we started feeding data over, or they started pulling data really from the LRS, I guess is the better way to say it. And if you see this bottom graphic that says passed and failed by objectives, and you see this bar that continues on forever that says unknown, well, um, that is all SCORM data, right? Because everything is coming in as a um, as a single objective. So, or unassociated with an objective, if you will. So, what it did, these items below are tied back to specific objectives, and then at the top of this chart, and I will bring it over in full size so you can actually see how it works. But again, questions passed or not passed, competency assessments passed or not passed, questions, and then other activities. So they added to that data that's not xAPI. So this is xAPI data. The stuff below that you can't read is all around the safety data that they're bringing in. So they're so that data is stored in a different database someplace, SQL database or whatever, and then just being accessed and sucked into the same Power BI page that then gets emailed out once a week to each supervisor in their group. So, shed a lot more light in on, what data we could get back to. And here's kind of in real time in a live kind of kind of view where we can see things change. Most missed by objective, test questions, highest test attempt. It's clearly named my sample test. What would be a bell curve of scores there if I had a little more data in that guy, and then there at the bottom my time frame. So if I want to slice and dice those things. So again, really working from the standpoint of what is it you want, right? What do you need in the way of data, and then what are those sources? And if somebody owns them, like the safety group had owned the safety data, then how can we use that? Are they going to give us access to it? Um, the final one, and this is I'm going to use this as a final example. I'm going to pass it back over so you guys can knock out um, the team reports here. And again, one I like to use this example. It's an older one. It's really was our first xAPI project, and the reason I like to use it is it does highlight um, an error that we made, and I want to make sure that everybody else gets to learn from that. So this group, they're doing a ton of training. They have uh, operators that are generating electricity and serving that to the grid. So there's a lot of security concerns around it. Plus, if they want to maintain a lot of document control, because if a uh, procedure is out of date and someone has it stored locally, there could be a problem. But students still need to be able to mark up that data or those documents, and they're all saved as PDFs. So we said, great, not a problem. All we have to do is create uh, create ebooks out of the documents, and a lot of that functionality is native to ebooks. Right? No, we're going to stay with PDFs. Never seems to make a lot of sense to me, but it was their preference, so that's where oh, sorry. So that's where we went. And what we did, and we worked with some of the guys from Float Software actually on this. Is we created a PDF annotator, a browser version, and an iOS version, where it will come in and show usage of this different documents over time. Right, so we'll continue to build, and then if I want to do any reporting, I can do that, and I'll show you that live here. So I'm going back into that same learner system, and I've got a PDF document that's already in progress here, cleverly called the PDF annotator test. Um, so if I open that, this is just a report that I saved as a PDF to have a sample document. But I can come over and do things like underline and highlight or add notes to this is super important, uh, and save those. Pardon me. Save those um, annotations. They're being written as an image layer to the learning record store. So when I go from my training computer to my office computer and I log back in, it will read those um, annotations from the learning record store and display them. Now, the other thing um, that we can, sorry, the other thing that we can do there is go in and track back to each page and generate a thumbnail that will show the number of markups on each page in all these documents, so you can go back through and use that for a little bit of evaluation there, so, a lot of people are maybe making notes on a particular area inside a piece of content. It could be that it's out of date or needs review, and that's where we screwed up. We did not take into account having a path for those thumbnails when we started writing this data initially. So we had about 300,000 statements in the database that didn't include or in the LRS that didn't include um, uh, the path to the thumbnail. So we wrote 300,000 voiding statements and 300,000 updated statements that included the path. So it's pretty easy to build a lot of junk if you don't think through the process of how you're going to get that data back out. Which I'm sure it's a discussion during the governance side this last week. So I have more of these examples, and there are links to everything that are, down at the bottom of each slide, and I assume those will be distributed out. So with that, I will render that time back over. I think I went 10 minutes and 35 seconds. So uh, I apologize for my overage.
Oh, but you've got questions, so you're not going anywhere yet, buddy.
Oh, awesome.
So
okay.
First question from Mary. So with the PDF annotator, does the individual have to be logged into the LMS and the xAPI enabled browser when they're accessing the PDFs? Or what do they actually have to be logged into to get?
All right. So if they're going through the LMS handles the authentication and document control, right? So there's some things I didn't mention, like you can hide file paths, and you can choose whether someone can or can't download one of the PDFs. But when I log into the LMS, it gives me the access there, to those documents. If I use the iOS app, what will happen is they don't download, but all you have to do is be logged back into that app, or you save the login for the app, and it will pull up the documents that you have. So you don't necessarily have to do a second login there.
Awesome. Thank you. So kind of like e-learning, you have to be logged into two different things. You're logged into the LMS and you're good to go.
That's right.
Okay, cool. All right. So second question then for you. Martin asks, did you track the text or just the rectangles on the image for the annotator?
We don't track the text that's being highlighted. We track all the notes clearly, so they can get their notes back. And we have developed a report on those, so you can see all of the notes for a particular page. But no, not capturing the specific text there, since of the PDF, because it's really just kind of an image. So that's one of the limitations, I think, of that solution all the way around. It would be nicer if that was a real EPUB type format.
Yeah, for sure. No, these are fantastic, Duncan. Thank you so much. And you're getting thanks for the answers in the chat too. So thanks for sharing these stories and visualizations and your lessons learned. So don't send 300,000 bad statements.
Yeah, stop before you do go get that far. So, all right. Well, I will shut down this sharing, and I will mute myself and pass the baton back over to you. I appreciate everybody's questions and your tolerance in having me in today.
No, we appreciate it. So thank you so much, Duncan.
Thank you.
All right, team check-in. So let's do a couple of things. So one, first, I will let everybody know as we are getting down to the wire with the xAPI party. By all means, please submit your sessions and your and register. So if you have a team that would like to demo at xAPI party, you can have a 20-minute slot or a full 45-minute slot. just go ahead and fill out the form that I believe Jamie posted in the Slack and that I have put in the team channels. We also have some demo spots for next week. So I believe I am working at a different desk today. I believe that Team CMI5 and Team Profile are demoing next week in Cohort. So that's a different thing. It's about a 10-minute demo. So teams, let me know what you would like to demo, including those of you teams who have multiple things going on. I think those are spectacular. Go ahead and we can take extra time there. So xAPI Party is coming up. Team Demo Week is next week. And I'll be spending time in the time between now and then getting everything all set up for having the demos running so you know what order you're going in and things like that. But for today, it's time for team updates. I have been surfing the channels, and I think that Team Storyline, Ilona or Martin Tuttle, I'm not sure if you're here, may have an update. Team CMI5, I believe, Martin Koob, you've got an update. Team xAPI Profile, Brian Duck, if you've got an update. And then I know that there's a lot of overlap. There's a big Venn diagram between Team Geolocation and Team Down Under. And I know some of that group had a presentation recently from Judy Katz on profile building and what it took to build the profile for Pebble. So there may be some updates there too. So Jamie, do you want to manage bringing people onto stage to do their updates? All right, looks like we are getting Martin Koob on first. And then anybody from any team that I neglected to mention, if you've got an update, by all means, please raise your hand and we will bring you on stage. There we go. Here comes Martin.
Hi there. Are my audio's on?
We got you. You're good to go.
Oh. Okay. So, yeah, in the last week, everyone's still trying to get their various approaches to work to create a CMI5 file. So Liz is working with Storyline and using her skill in writing JavaScript to send xAPI statements from that and then save it as a CMI5. Brian has been trying to use Captivate, but has run into some roadblocks there, which apparently will be solved with an update that's supposed to be coming in December. Peter Herman and Melissa Marovich are working on a course created in Rise, and what they find, it's only reporting an overall score, and they would like to have statements that report on the individual answers. So I was really interested in Duncan's presentation on that, so maybe send a question over that way later on. But they were going to work with Liz to see if they could get that to work. Henry Ring has been trying to use Art Winkerton's AU simulator, but he sort of ended up that he wasn't able to get the Catapult example courses to work correctly. And so he's taken a different approach of just trying to take their simple single AU basic responsive example lesson, take out the geology parts, and then try and rebuild it with some various parts to see if you can tinker with that. So his is more down in the weeds. Chetan has been trying to use other authoring tools, such as the Adapt authoring tool, Articulate, or Captivate, and trying to do that. And then for mine, I haven't started it yet because I'm still sort of learning how the whole system works, but mine is to use an external, like not in the LMS, but an external. And so I'm learning from the other people who are doing their work, and then hopefully I can get something maybe by the party. So that's basically what we've been doing. And our meeting is tonight at 4 o'clock if people want to join. And there's a link in our update.
Very, very cool. Martin, are you all still looking for additional samples of things to test, or are you really just neck deep in the testing?
Yeah, if people have something that's working as a CMI5 file that they've created and we can just see how it works, that would be great. And so we have a place to upload it on our GitHub page. Or if you want to send it another way, just contact us.
Very cool. Very cool.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Some good work going
Thanks.
on there. All right. Brian. Ooh, Martin, I don't know if you just saw in the chat, but Duncan's got some stuff he can send your way too to test.
Great, Duncan. So this is Brian Duck. Oh, gotta click the camera.
Go ahead, turn on your camera, and then let us know which projects you're reporting out for, Brian, because I know you kind of are working across a number of them.
Certainly, I can just sort of tag team with Martin. I'm also part of the team CMI5 Create AU. And one of the things that came out, we've actually been coordinating with the CMI5 working group that meets Fridays at 10:30. One of the things that came out in talking with that group was that the current implementation of Captivate 2019, has an outdated version of the Rustici JavaScript library. And if Adobe chose to update that, it would be fairly easy for their coders to implement an export to CMI5. So one of the things that sort of has come out is ideally we could reach out and make a grassroots effort to, as customers of Adobe, if you're using Captivate, to request that update as part of the forthcoming publicly announced beta of Chime. And the beta is publicly announced, but I don't know that it's a public beta. You'd have to go through the Adobe e-learning community to request that. But if you were part of the e-learning presentations that they did last month, there was actually an avenue, a presentation on Chime and on how to request being part of that. So that sort of wraps up the Create AU, my part of the Create AU comments. Now I'll go into the xAPI profile weekly update. And it actually sort of tag teams with what you were talking about. We've been coordinating with Team Down Under and with a few of their members who have been working with this geolocation profile. So I actually reached out and got Judy introduced. So she's been working with a number of groups. And what we did last week as part of the xAPI profile team was to work through some of the definitions and identify verbs that Judy may be using to build her profile. So that was actually part of our meeting. There is, as part of our update in GitHub, and I'll be publishing it out in Slack, we have a link to the video of that meeting. So if people want to catch up with sort of the process that we're walking Judy through for building that profile, that is actually part of the effort that our team is taking on. So that sort of encompasses our accomplishments for the week. We had our meeting and it's published to YouTube. Areas where we need support, we're still looking for feedback on our xAPI profile primer. The idea of the primer is that someone who is just getting started with xAPI and wants to understand what profiles are and how they fit, it is sort of a starting document for that audience. And it also tries to answer the questions of how do I choose one and what other things should I choose to go along with a profile. So we are building that document, and that's what we expect to present as part of the team demo next week. But to leap into what we hope to accomplish for next week, we are looking at the agenda for that meeting tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as a review of the presentation outline. We're going to talk through what that outline might look like for presenting for our team report outs next week and for the xAPI party. And as a final effort, we will be wrapping up with assisting in Judy's efforts or just getting an update from her, depending on where she's at with creating that profile. So that's it for the report out from Team xAPI profile. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Brian. Is there anybody else who is here who would like to give a team update today? And while you raise your hand to do that, there's a little raise hand function. I will answer Liz's question. Liz, next week, each team, well, right now I have 2 or 3 teams committed to demo. So that means we will have about 15 minutes for each team because we won't need team updates. If we have more teams, it'll be a little bit less than that, but it looks like about 15 minutes. For party, though, you get a full either 20 minutes or 45 minutes if you want to demo. Because think about it, for party, you're helping people understand where you started, what you tried out, introduce your team, and then what your end result is. Plus, you have a few weeks between the end of cohort and the beginning of party to be able to do a little bit more work on your project as well. So it looks like that's the only updates that we have from people who are here. I also have seen that on Team Storyline, it's a team storyline, bring your own project. So everybody's kind of bringing their own and working in parallel play here and sharing out what they're learning. Martin Tuttle is working on a diabetes assessment education piece in Storyline, and he's having some success in reporting out on answers around multiple choice questions. He is having some trouble. If anybody wants to jump over and learn about what kinds of trouble people have with the tools available to us, it may be a tools issue, not a people problem. That's a great way to learn. But also, if you have an answer idea, you could jump in over there. He's stuck on how to report out for fill in the blank questions from Storyline, as well as select all that apply questions. So ones in which there might be different shades of correct or incorrect. So lots of cool stuff going on this cohort this semester. I'm really excited to see all the projects and I'm looking forward to some demos next week. So thank you much, everybody. Feel free to sign up for party, submit a session proposal, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all as we wrap up this semester. And those of you in Michigan, the storms are coming through and some of your power is getting knocked out. So thank you, Jamie, for making it back on. And thank the internet gods for making all this work today. Have a great rest of your week, everybody. Go out and build something awesome. And if I